Hey guys, I'm Justin.
I'm Lee.
I'm Eric.
I'm Carl.
And on today's episode of Welcome to Horrorland, we're going to talk about a trilogy of films that really fits the vibe of what's going on. It's heating up outside. It's getting closer to summertime. So let's talk about the Sleepaway Camp franchise on today's episode.
Welcome to Horrorland.
Alright, so Sleepaway Camp 1 through 3, the original trilogy, will be the focal point of today's episode. There is a fourth, Return to Sleepaway Camp. We omitted that. It's not great. I think everyone can agree.
Yeah, it's not great, but I mean, it is part of the franchise, so you
Has Isaac Hayes in it. I mean, it can be all bad.
But 1 through 3 are pretty, I don't know if iconic's the right word, but they are pretty well known. They are highly sought after in the horror community. 2 and 3 went out of print for several years after Scream Factory released them, and I think it's Sandpiper Films has now released them again. And that's a number one request or ask that we have is Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3 at the convention booth. So definitely a movie that I think people want to check out. But yeah, I guess we'll just start with the beginning with part 1. So Sleepaway Camp 1, starring Felissa Rose.
Correct.
Yeah. Who wants to start? I'm the only one talking.
I mean, her boyfriend's over here. We all start with him. I think.
This she is my fave. I've known her for like over 30 years. So this movie, for anybody that's never seen it, I'm not going to ruin any ending for you. Got a horrible plot twist with about 31 seconds left in it. It's hard to explain. I love it. It's fun. The one thing that will shock you if you've never seen it is these kids cuss like sailors.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're legit 14-year-olds and they're letting it fly.
Yeah.
But it was a fun movie. There's some good kills in it. It's hard to talk about without giving it away. But
I mean, it is like a 50-something-year-old movie.
yeah,
Almost
it's not
50
like
years old.
anybody's not seen it. The reveal's pretty good. Big thing is Felissa Rose probably doesn't say 15 words throughout the whole movie.
True.
It's a lot of fun. It's a good ride. It's a typical summer camp movie. There's a lot of sexual innuendos in there at the very beginning from the cook that makes everybody uncomfortable.
Which is one of the greatest scenes when they kind of get their revenge on him.
Oh, yeah.
Just the makeup and the way
whole
that looks.
pot. Yeah, it was. And it's like Eric said, if you haven't seen this yet, it's almost 50 years old. I'm going to ruin that
You
for you.
can't really call yourself a horror fan if after 50 years you haven't seen Sleepaway.
Basically, the unknown killer, he's the big guy, the cook's putting corn in boiling water, and he's standing up in a chair, and the kid pulls a chair out from under him. He pulls up, probably 50-gallon pot of water over on it.
Oh,
It is horrible looking.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. I did want to mention you went out of your way to say all the kids they were really kids.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely correct. I noticed in the sequels that they were decidedly not children, not a one.
No,
everybody was in their mid-30s.
Yeah, it started out like you're thinking it's going to be the same thing, and then like when you get to the shit sisters and they're late 20s.
I mean, I got pretty tickled about it because I was like, man, they went from let's be
legitimate kids.
Let's have kids here too. Like, we're going to make sure you know that this is not children. These are all very much adults.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of kids in the second.
In the
one.
second one, it was the two little boys
Yeah.
who were taking pictures of everybody.
The boob
Yeah.
patrol.
Yeah, the Boob Patrol. Yeah. That was about the only
Sleepaway Camp 1 was 83, and then 2 was 87.
Yes.
So, I mean, you've almost got like a 5-year span there, and I think not having kids in part 2 or 3 is probably just a clear-cut sign as to how society had changed in those 5 years.
Well, it cost
really had.
too. You got to pay for those kids to get to school during filming and stuff like that. It's a cost.
But I think the big thing was nudity.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because there was a lot of nudity.
A lot of nudity.
A lot is
You
an
couldn't pull
understatement.
that up with sub 18
I couldn't.
year olds.
No.
I couldn't watch a scene without a boob flying through the screen. It was pretty crazy.
It was almost terrible.
I was appalled.
I was not. But it was a fun movie. I love it to death. There's a big group of movies. I've said it 1,000 times. I'm really sentimental about my movies. That's one of a core, probably 25 movies that I watch a ridiculous amount of times. Mm-hmm. And I enjoy it every single time I watch it. It's fun. I see Felissa at conventions all the time. I love her to death. She's always been so sweet to me. We spent lots of time talking and stuff, yes. and it's makes it even more special. But honestly, the movie was something you did not expect coming out in '83. Mm-hmm. No, you didn't see the ending coming.
No, I think the best way to probably describe it is probably the first trans killer. We'll leave it. We'll kind of say and leave it at that. Again, kind of got to watch how you describe things on YouTube. But I think that's probably the best. And really, there's not a whole lot even to this day, even though that compares with it. That compares with it because that is a little more socially acceptable in today's society. But in '83, definitely not something that you would have thought was going to come out was a trans killer right there at the very end.
Where a woman had taken a young boy and she wanted a daughter so bad that she raised him as a daughter and not a boy.
I think again what we just talked about was probably the biggest thing is the depiction of not only are they trans, but it's a little girl. It's her in her a younger age. It wasn't like some 30, 40-year-old that had lived with this and
it's
whatever.
A 12, 13-year-old that had been not necessarily by choice, but had been raised that way by the crazy aunt.
Yeah.
They had decent kills in it. Some of the kills were really fun. Yeah. I like the bee's nest.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite.
That was pretty good. Yeah. We kind of skipped. We didn't really even go over the plot necessarily.
Let's talk about the plot because let me tell you, talk about convoluted.
It is convoluted, but it's simplistic in the sense that this girl, you don't know why, but her and her cousin go to summer camp, and she, the whole time, she doesn't want to talk to anyone. She's very, leave me alone. She doesn't want to get in the water. That all comes to fruition and why in the end, but pretty much just these kids are so hateful. And she basically gets her revenge. And that's essentially the non-convoluted, easy-to-go-by plot.
The easy-to-go-by plot, but they throw so many things in there.
They do.
There's been articles written about this, about how convoluted, and like you said, it's a very good synopsis of what happens. Mm-hmm. But to get to that story,
very much so.
There is so much other crap that goes on. You're like, what?
And they don't really tie it all together very well.
No, and the thing about this, it gets me more than anything. If you watch this and really pay attention to this, everything that they bitch about socially about children occurs. You got bullying. Mm-hmm. Got kids being picked on for everything in the world, for being short, for being a girl, for being a boy playing a girl. There's something going on. They treat her like shit. They cussed her, threatened her, tried to get her, to come down, all kinds of stuff. And it's not hard to understand why it became what it became. But as far as smooth move, there's no truth. The plot of it is these kids are going to go have a good time at summer camp, and something goes dastardly wrong.
Have any of y'all been to summer camp, by the way?
Yeah.
No.
Do I look like a camping kid?
So you mean you're the only two that's actually been to camp? I went to Camp Curry when I was a kid, and it really reminded me. You watch this and you're like, man, none of that is. It's very similar. Let me tell you, Camp Curry was a lot like that.
Because we went to foothills of the Ozarks in Missouri, and you think those kids were not bad.
We had gang fights up there. Your cabin was like your own gang, and you rode with your gang, and you didn't go out with other people's gangs. You went with your own,
and you beat the shit out of each other. And then there's I went in the '70s, so there's always substance.
That's true. That's a good point. We did go at a much. I went in the '80s, you went in the '70s
when it wasn't quite so tender. And it was fun, but it was, I didn't have, answers.
Times were different back then in the old days before cars and stuff.
Cars and cell phones.
Before they made marijuana available to the masses. God dang. But anyway, it's a fun movie. It's one of my favorites because of the memories attached to it, and quite frankly, the ending.
I mean, honestly, it hasn't aged well. I won't lie.
No.
But I'm much like you. I love it because there's a lot of memories attached to that movie. It came out, was 83? 83. And, I mean, I was 12, I think.
I remember seeing the first time that it came on DVD or Blu-ray. It was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible because that DVD release is not great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
And even worse on VHS. I've got it on
the DVD release. I actually have the one at home. I did not bring it, but it actually is like the first aid. It has the American Red Cross on there, and like immediately went out of print. If you have one of those, it's like worth quite a bit of money actually, because they didn't have the rights, of course, to use that. And then you've got this horror franchise that has killing kids and everything else, kind of. So it was kind of funny, but yeah, I mean, Sleepaway Camp 1. It was actually, believe it or not, the only one that I had seen prior to this video. I had not seen 2 or 3 prior to this. But I kind of have a different view on it. It's not one that I'm really like sentimental about. I didn't dislike it. I thought it was fine. But I am very high upon the fact that, yes, it was very convoluted. There were several scenes that we didn't even talk about. There's one that...
well, it's one about her father and stuff where it actually insinuates that he's gay.
Yes, and they never
touch about it again.
And in the beginning?
Yeah, it's like a clip, and then that's...
It's just a small little snippet that goes, hey, by the way, he's a little gay. And then it just goes right past it.
But they don't touch on it in the... Yeah, like I said, they don't touch on it in the sense of like showing that maybe the aunt knew about that, and that's kind of what
I think that was what was going on, is that she was reacting to all of that.
And I mean, the aunt is just... I hated her character.
Oh, her character.
Just the way that she
her
played.
personification.
Yes, the way that she spoke. I hated it.
Of course, she was in there for all of, what 3 minutes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it wasn't...
She left an impact.
Oh, yeah. Very much so.
Yeah, and it was just... the flaky... I think one of the things that drove me crazy was her cadence of her voice.
Me too, yes.
You know, that wouldn't do it. Oh, why would we be over there when we gotta have to be over here? And then it was just the cadence was crazy.
And it was, and
her voice inflection was...
She was trying to almost, I think, show that she was a little bit off and a little bit crazy, because she would be like...
Well, she
almost like talking to herself, but in the tone of voice that she used, it just didn't, it kind of made
If I recall, she's the only one with any actual
acting.
Probably.
She had several roles before that, if I remember right.
Yeah, she did, and several after. How the hell that happened, I don't know.
Yeah. So, overall, I mean, Sleepaway Camp, decent film.
It
hasn't aged well, as we said. Very convoluted, but again, it's memorable because of that last probably 30 seconds. Again, probably the first film with a trans killer. Probably one of the, even to today, one of the only ones where people remember that and it's talked about. And I mean, let's face it, here we are 40 years, 50 years later, whatever it is. I can't do date math, but whatever it is. And Felissa Rose has literally made a name for herself off of this film.
And that's what I was about to say. Is I mean, the number one thing this film gave us was Felissa Rose, who is
that's the one I've got.
We can't show it up there, but
she's a...
I'll see if I can't insert a picture
now.
She is an absolute icon. And there's a fourth one, but I've only...
She's actually in that one, didn't she?
Yeah, I've only seen it a couple of times.
I could have watched it today, but I didn't.
It's just
it's called The Survivor or something, isn't it? Teenage Survivor or something, yeah.
This one is really, like I said, for me, it's kind of like Humongous, not a great movie, didn't age well.
Yeah.
Didn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. But, when I watched this, I was like 21 or something. I remember watching it the first time with Janet and being like, oh, okay, that was...
Interesting.
How do you feel about that, Sigmund?
Definitely different. So all right. So next up, Sleepaway Camp Part 2. We trade Felissa Rose for Pamela Springsteen.
My girl.
She was not a great actress at all. But this one is from 1987. Essentially. Plot of this one is basically...
Did you say plot? Wait a minute. There was a plot?
I mean, somewhat.
No, it was definitely dial up 1-800 Hackovich.
So, Pamela basically has been in a insane asylum. Again, she takes the place of Felissa Rose. She has gone to an insane asylum and been institutionalized for the murders that had happened at camp. While there, she has basically escaped and gone to a clinic and undergone a sex change. So now she is a full female. And she goes back to camp because it doesn't really say in part 2 why we go back to camp. That is touched on in part 3, which we'll get to in a minute. But it doesn't really say why she goes back to camp. But she is now a camp counselor. And she just starts
And you can
hacking
tell.
people up.
Yeah.
Well,
The whole
anybody who does
problem
bad.
with it
Yeah, anyone that does that.
Yeah.
Anyone that does bad.
her whole thing in this movie, I think, is like you said, she went back to camp because that's what she knew, and I think deep down she loved it, and I think that's what made her want to kill people off, because you're ruining the true camp experience for everybody else.
And that's actually what she says in part 3. It is a reflection back to part 2, but it's actually not a scene in part 2. So they award her like the camp counselor of the week or the month or the summer or whatever. I'm not exactly sure in part 2, and it kind of ends there. But when we get to part 3, they flash back to that, but they make the scene longer. And, she says, I love camp so much. It's a place that you can come and forget the rest of the world, and everyone just gets along and loves everybody, even though that's not what happened at camp. And
There's definitely more story in 3 for sure.
Yeah, and so she definitely she kind of takes that, and anyone that does wrong, she says, you're going to have to go home. Only home is not home. Home is death. And she
has a checklist in the 3rd one of 3 things. She asks you if you're having sex, if you're doing drugs. I can't remember what the other thing is. But if you say,
Alcohol, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's alcohol.
Yeah.
And if you do any of the 3,
You're out.
you're out of there.
You're out of the club.
Yeah.
You're out of life. You're out of luck.
So part 2, though, it did have some pretty cool kill scenes even still.
Oh, yeah.
I think they call them the shit. Was
The
it
Shoat
The
sisters.
Shoat sisters. They call them the shit sisters.
Yeah.
That was actually really funny. They burn them a lot. One of them
set
wakes
on
up and
fire.
she's on like the grid, like she's on a barbecue grill. That was pretty good.
The outhouse scene was the worst for me. I had to
Yeah.
act
Oh, that was
away.
terrible.
It was
I had to
disgusting.
look away
But
and
you
be like,
gotta
"Oh,
admit, though, man, when she went down in that hole, that looked legit.
Oh,
Yeah,
very much
it
so.
did.
That was rough.
And I actually will give them attention to detail a point for that, because every time she came back up, she had more leeches and was a little more covered and a little more disgusting in the things that were in the outhouse toilet. You can use your imagination.
Yeah.
But I love I actually really enjoyed the in the abandoned cabin there.
Yes.
Everyone at
when
the
they had
end.
everybody, it kind of
yeah.
It was
It was
very
like the big
happy
riff.
birthday
Happy
to me,
birthday.
if you ask me.
kind of riff.
The only thing was, you could tell, again, a lot of inexperience in the actors here and things, and this one being of a lower budget. This didn't have just a huge, ginormous budget. You could see every single one of them blink and breathe
Oh,
in it.
yes, you could.
So it also kind of added that comedic aspect to it, which they weren't trying to. But just after watching as many horror films as we have, you're like, I saw them blink, and so it was kind of like that.
I can honestly say it has the single worst tongue cutting scene I've ever seen
Yes.
in all my
Agreed.
years of watching.
Yeah, because
Yes.
I will say,
Worst things I've
You
said.
could see it in her hand when she went down.
at least in Gables,
Yeah.
that shit looked real.
Lee was like, the tongue has no blood on it, and there was no blood coming from her mouth. It was just like,
was
cut your tongue out, but it
bad.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Remember when
really
she
bad.
cut the boy's head off in the old abandoned cabin?
Yes.
Yeah, there was nothing.
Nothing.
No blood,
Yeah.
just back, and it fell on the floor.
Yeah.
You could tell they were running out of money at that point. Like, blood, we ain't got no money for blood.
Yeah, if there's gonna be blood, you're gonna bleed for me.
Yeah.
But
But
it was fun in the sense that at least you have a story.
yeah.
You know,
you do.
the plot was gonna be.
They tried really hard to tie it to part 1, and for lack of better terms, when you have to pivot and change your main character, I feel like they did a pretty okay job. But definitely, as we'll touch on here in a few minutes, they definitely did a better job of tying 2 and 3 together.
Yes,
Because
I
they
can
were able
honestly
to
say
keep
that,
Pamela
yes.
Springsteen consistent.
You
Yeah,
can
the-
tell though that they were trying to go with the formula that worked for the 80s at the time. It was
Yeah.
very much, let's show a lot of boob, let's show a lot of blood, or not lack of blood, but a lot of violence, and let's hope that gets us some views.
Yeah.
You can very much tell that they amped up all that part of it and dialed back the story to the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And you could tell by how close she was to the owner of the camp that she, even though she's batshit crazy and killing everybody, you could tell that it was because she really, really, really wanted camp to be this idyllic place for
Yeah.
children that in her
That-
mind it should be.
Especially for the second one.
That actually confused me quite a bit for a while until I realized Because if you notice it, she calls him uncle.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay, this is a relative. Which he would know that she's
Right.
a murderer.
Right.
But then I realized toward the end, because somebody else calls him uncle, I think that was just
Yeah.
a pet name
Yeah.
of the
It was like
main
the
guy.
uncle, like the father figure
Yes.
of the camp, the guy that, but it had its, it had its little good points there, but
Yeah.
then at the same time, you're looking at a low budget mid 80s slasher film.
Oh,
So
it
if
was-
you're looking for a piece of cinematic masterpiece.
They were banking that name, boy. That's what they was doing. And
Well, they actually did well at the, for sales, and they all three did.
You could tell that part 2 had a much bigger budget than 3, though, because most of the kills were still on screen, cutting the head off, pushing her down. In the part 3, everything's pretty much off camera, and then you
Post.
kind of see the after effect.
Yeah.
One of the biggest plot holes I wish we had have gotten touched on, and it's not a huge deal, but just something from part 1 is her cousin was her protector. They went to camp together, and he protected her, and they beat him at the end. The camp counselor, because he thinks that he's the one doing the killing. But you see him breathing; he's still alive.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was a really big
he
missed
never came
opportunity.
back.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it was a massive missed opportunity to not bring him back in any of them. And I mean, that's a small thing. It is what it is.
But
It doesn't affect the film, but I feel like it could have added something to it, because part 2 is just kind of the ending of part 2 for me is very flat.
There's a lot of missed opportunities.
it was,
for
because
sure.
where did she go?
Exactly. Yeah. Like.
Where the hell did he go?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's just like gone.
Yeah.
And it just.
Did he
the
abandon
endings-
her because she was a killer? Like they didn't explain that. They could have done that, or they could have brought him back as being the owner of the camp.
Or he
being
could have
another
came back as
counselor,
I've got to
or-
find Angela's
Well,
crazy.
they could have ultimately made him her foil. The
Yeah,
guy who
exactly.
stops her every time. That would have been a great way to to have her main nemesis be her cousin.
yeah.
That'd have been perfect.
the guy that protected her from the beginning.
And like part 2 and 3 were made so close to each other. When part 2 ends and you have her driving off in the truck with the girl, we don't actually see her kill the girl. We know that, I'm sure that's what happens. But again, that was a missed opportunity, because that would have been a perfect way to open part 3. Because the way part 3 opens is just like, what? Like,
That was
How-
crazy.
I was like, what are we
Crazy.
watching?
How the hell
Like,
did you learn to drive
How
and
did you know
operate a
that
dump
person was
truck?
coming to camp? Like
And how did you know to look like her?
Yeah,
And that wig was atrocious, man.
yeah.
yeah, it was
Straight
pretty
up
rough.
80s hair
When the
right
cop
there.
looked at her and
no
said-
doubt.
You look older than 17. Yeah, I've been through a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, birthday, you dumbass.
And then she even said something there at one point. She's like, yeah, a lot of drugs. Like,
Yeah, well, right. And then, and there, we got to touch on that. That's something that really irritated the shit out of me. How she took comic cleaner and chopped it up, wrapped it
Oh,
up,
yeah.
gave it to a girl
Gave it
like
to that
it was
reporter girl.
like it was an
Cocaine.
8-ball of coke.
Yeah.
You could snort half a can of that, and you're not gonna bleed out like that.
yeah.
Well, for the sakes of the
for the sake
movie,
of a
they had to
movie.
give you a little something.
No.
something.
It's like you can't do shit like that. I've been a nurse too.
Maybe she mixed stuff. We don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
Razor
There was a whole lot of chemicals there, yeah.
There's a lot of something. I mean, I probably snorted that at one point in time, thinking it gets you high. I don't know. Maybe something wrong with me today.
To run back to part 2 real quick, I personally like part 2 more than part 1. I'm probably going to be the only one at this table that's like that. But
No,
I just
no,
felt,
that's a better.
I felt like the story of it flowed better. I actually enjoyed
Yeah.
the kills a little bit more. And I think the fact that we didn't have children in it, even though they were acting as if they were younger than what they were, it just made it flow more like an actual horror film. You didn't have to worry about like, oh, that's a 14-year-old that they just chopped their head off, because
Yes.
I'm not one that gets like real like, ooh, I don't really care for that. But I don't know, something about kids in films like that, it does kind of pull on a
I
different
get it.
string. So I personally like part 2 a little bit more.
The
So
I
thing
do
to keep
too.
in mind about the 3 films is the first one was not played for laughs. It was meant to
it
be
was a
serious.
straightforward.
If you'll notice in 2 and 3, it's labeled comedy horror.
Oh yeah,
It's intentionally done
Yeah.
poorly to make you giggle a little bit. The first one,
was not.
It's not.
Felissa Rose herself will tell you that was played straight to be
Yeah.
terrifying.
yeah.
And
And I think I don't know this, but the way that it kind of plays, I think it was played to be a one-off. I
Yes.
think that they kind of brought 2 and 3 back to cash in on the name, and they're like, "Oh crap, let's change the story." Because again, in that 5-year span, I think that the whole trans storyline had become a little bit more unacceptable because we went through a big part there where it was like not socially acceptable, and so I think that they kind of had to back off that, and they made that comment and the plot twist just through dialogue in part 2. But if you catch it, it all makes sense.
Yes.
So
Felissa has openly said that at the time, she turned it down because there wasn't enough money involved.
I'm sure.
And she has openly said, "I wish I had done those films." Many times. I've actually heard her in a couple of the things that we've watched.
Because the 5 years that in interviews and stuff, it's always been said, that her age was a big part of the reason that she didn't do it because of the age that they were looking for. But in 5 years, she should have been old enough, technically.
I mean, she was 18 at that point. She was 13 when she was filming the first one. 13 or 12.
But again, even still being 18, depending on where her career was going and where she was at, you don't always know.
To it then now.
Like when you're reading something, let's say she read part 2 and you see all the nudity and stuff in it at 18, depending on where she was, that might not have been something that she wanted to be associated with or whatever the case
her
may be.
agent might have been like, that's not a good idea.
Very much so. Yeah. So, a million and one different ways to look at that. But that was 1987's Sleepaway Camp 2, and then we move forward to 1988 for Sleepaway Camp 3. Pamela Springsteen does return as Angela for part 3, and it is essentially the camp has been shut down the year prior when Angela did all the killings. She has just disappeared. As we seen in part 2, she drove away in the truck. We opened part 3 with this girl going to camp, and Angela drives up in a garbage truck, runs her over, smashes her in the back of the garbage truck, takes her identity, and goes to camp. And camp this time is basically a social experiment. These couple has bought the camp, and they have brought together the well-to-do, the rich, the powerful, I guess you could say, and they've partnered them with all these young adults that are underprivileged, who come from drug-ridden neighborhoods and things like that. And it's a social experiment to get them to kind of get along. And again, just all hell ensues with Angela there.
Yeah.
She had good kills in that movie.
She did.
I actually liked the kills in that one. Yeah, I actually liked several of the kills in that one. And
I tell you, the one that got me was when she set the tent on fire. I was like, shit.
Oh, it was the lawnmower for me, easily.
I love the lawnmower.
Lawnmower was an incredible. I'm like, man, they gave me ideas. I was like, that's a great way to do it.
The only issue with the lawnmower was it's like, you really can't get up out of that trash because she's just like, I can't move.
That was kind of funny.
Get your big ass up. Now, I'll be honest with you, and that's why I pulled him up on IMDb. One part about this movie that drove me crazy? Michael Pollard. And he's the one that played Herman.
Oh, yeah.
You know why it drove me crazy? Do you know he started acting in 1952?
Oh, wow.
He's got like 214 screen credits. He was in Next to Kin. He was in all kinds. He was a bit actor and a character actor. But I thought, of all things that you're going to do to this poor bastard is make him walk around with a Playboy bunny belt buckle waving his wiener in some girl's face. Quit.
He was also the voice in the Toxic Crusaders. The Toxic Crusaders. The
most famous thing I saw him in was Scrooge. That was my favorite.
Scrooge.
That was my favorite movie for a long favorite Christmas movie.
God, look at that. Next to Kin, Scrooged, Superboy, Tango and Cash, Dark Angel.
I remember in Tango and Cash.
Dick Tracy. Yeah, it's just like, and I look at that and I thought, dude, you did a movie. It only grossed like $450,000, I think. Something like that. I may be wrong, but I think it was low.
Yeah.
I can tell y'all what my number one thing that drove me crazy about that movie, but y'all are going to roll your eyes when I tell you. And it's
what?
Go on, say it so I can do it on screen.
Alright, well, close your ears because you're not going to like it very much. It was the very first scene. Old girl's in there, and of course they're going to show her topless. Very first thing. And her mom's got milkshake written on there, and I'm like, dude, they picked the girl with the smallest boobs in the entire movie and put milkshake on her.
And the sad thing is, you could tell by looking at that was fake. That was old shitty green on the street corner tattoo ink. Looked like something I brought home from prison. Big Daddy.
I mean, as soon as I saw that, I went, oh my God.
How dysfunctional, but just the whole beginning of it with the mom cussing at her and all that. And I'm like, but I'm going away to summer camp. I'm like, oh.
But again, it kind of sets up more what they were talking about with like the underprivileged, the coming from households like that were. Yeah.
I mean, it made me giggle, so it accomplished what it was supposed to do. But boy,
the kind of hidden plot of this one, which again I thought they embedded really well, and I actually really enjoyed it for part 3 because again, it's just all tape that ties everything together.
Yeah.
But it was the third counselor that they have at this camp, and it is the cop who was the father of the boy in part 2 with his head chopped off and was stuck in the TV from part 2. And he makes some multiple comments in part 2 about my dad as a cop. He was on duty when Angela was arrested. I don't think he was the one that did the arresting.
He was involved.
According to his son, he helped arrest her. Is what he said.
But did he? Okay.
That's what he said in the second movie. He goes, "My dad helped arrest you."
Yeah.
And that was right before she killed him. But.
Yeah, and it did make like you said, it tied the movies together.
Yeah,
And it made it more of a believable.
Yeah. And it really helped tie it together too, because they were asking, what does Angela look like? Because it was like this big urban legend at camp. And he's like, no one knows because she's had this operation. So many years had passed. So again, just kind of arcing back to, I think they understood part 1, completely different character. She looked different. It was, at this point, almost 10 years ago since that one was made. We've got to do something to tie all this together and make it work. And I feel like they did the best with what they had, and I feel like they made it work.
Yeah, they did.
It accomplished what it was supposed to. It made you laugh a little bit.
And honestly, his character was a sympathetic character from the beginning. His son dies, and how good he was to the kids, and how the one kid that was supposed to be some badass troublemaker ends up becoming, he's not. You see through, what this cop's showing him, that he's actually not a bad kid. They're actually trying to put like some merit into this movie that is horrible.
Yeah.
I'm like, $450,000 at the box office. Probably did 3 times that on video.
All of that stuff did. I will say, just for logic's sake, that was the worst cop in the world. He sat there and talked to Angela for a half hour before she finally got him. And I'm like, man, hit her with the 2x4. Jesus Christ.
And then she pulls out the gun and shoots him.
He's like, what are you going to do to kill me? I'm like, hit her with a 2x4. Quit asking questions.
What Angela died from? Brain trauma. Because I'd have swung for the fences on Pumpkin.
Oh, my goodness. But anyway.
Then she survives that. The stabbing and all that crap. And
I couldn't believe they set up for another sequel because she didn't come back after that third one. And I was like, well, you surely set yourself up for a third sequel, but they didn't ever follow through with it. I guess probably because it didn't make enough money. I would get that's a guess on my part.
Well, part 4 was, I don't know, it was terrible.
I've never seen part 4.
Yeah,
I mean, again,
that's Return to Sleepaway Camp, right?
No, there's one part.
Well, that's what it's advertised on.
No, there's 2.
Is there 2?
That's an independent, almost fan film.
It was made by Magnet. Or put out by Magnet.
Yeah, but part 4 is actually called The Survivor. And it's terrible.
The original poster for part 3, if I'm not mistaken, I think part 4 is pretty much the exact same poster. It just has 4 instead of, and then the Survivor at the bottom. But I've never seen it. I actually did see that when we were looking like for notes and stuff. I did see that online, but I've never seen it. I don't think it actually has a physical release either.
The only reason I saw it was
maybe a DVD, but definitely not a Blu-ray or anything.
I can't remember where I saw it. It was on a streamer.
And to be quite honest, I mean, so you've seen, but you have seen the film.
Yeah,
so it's a legit film. It wasn't just like a fan. I didn't know if it was a fan poster.
She wasn't in it though, right?
No.
Okay.
Nobody was in it.
Okay.
The only I never saw it in its entirety either. I got it on a Shudder or something. It does anger me that I can't find the rest of my box set.
I'll sell you my box.
You got that one?
Yeah.
The white one?
Yes.
What do you want for it?
It's expensive.
Oh, fuck, when you fuck around and find out. Okay, then we're going right back.
Y'all are seeing.
No, we're not. We're on camera. Let's go. Let's wrap this up.
I see some real live negotiations going on.
I do too. mean,
So after the glitch, as we come back, Carl is now trying to Jew me on my Sleepaway Camp box set here to get all 3 on DVD. But that's besides the point.
Behind the scenes.
Right.
The life of collectors, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
But again, as I said in the opening, as it heats up outside and you kind of look for those camp slashers, I feel like everybody goes to Friday the 13th, the other camp slasher, and it is the camp slasher. I mean, it's the camp slasher. But these are definitely ones that if you've never seen them, I would recommend them. They're fun ones to turn your brain off, just have fun with. Why are you told me the other night you didn't hate them, and now you're acting
I
like...
don't hate them.
But you're looking at me like this was never.
but you know, though,
said turn your brain
when you
off,
look
so
at
far,
it,
maybe.
look back at that time period.
You can't turn it on because it's...
You look back that time period, you got The Burning, which was far superior.
I forget about it being a camp. Yeah, but it is.
And that was a really good movie.
Madman March.
Madman.
That was also a camp, if I'm
Oh,
going to
yeah.
It was Madman. You got The Burning. You know, a lot of
camping.
a lot of camper films were just.
Well, everybody was ripping off Friday the 13th.
Oh,
what they were
absolutely.
doing. They were absolutely trying to get those Friday the 13th dollars because that thing
they were
smashed
doing it.
records when it came out.
You know, and it was just it was a different period of time. And I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'm very fortunate I got to live through this. You know,
Yep.
it was a lot of fun. Now there are a lot better movies than these, but I love them just for the, you know, like I said, the sentimentality, the cheese factor, and just Allie from the second one, the blonde hair that had, you know, boobs everywhere.
Yeah. The fornicator.
Yeah, the fornicator.
I think they all were fornicators at one point or another in that movie.
If they weren't, I'm not sorry. I was like, that was a poster crush for a long time.
Was she in anything else?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so. She actually was a really
You know
pretty
what?
one.
Now that you said that, let's consult.
Don't look at me that way. You even said something about it yourself.
Let's consult IMDb.
I'll tell you what you said later, but that wasn't what I was speaking on. I thought she was a pretty girl. But anyways, so overall, pretty fun trilogy. If you have time, if you can find these out in the wild, definitely give them a watch. I'm not sure if they're on Tubi or anything. I don't know because I have the physical copies. But part 2 and 3 are back in print now from Sandpiper Films. You can pick those up. I'm pretty sure Orbit and Grindhouse both have them. Part 1 is still in print from Screen Factory as long as you don't mind getting a copy without a slipcover because that is highly out of print.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, just we wanted, as like I said, heating up outside as it gets hot. These 100 days fixing to start hitting here rather soon, I'm sure. And as it does, and you start wanting to watch those summertime movies, these are definitely 3 I feel like to get into. So just ones that we talk about a lot at conventions. We see Felissa a lot at conventions, and just ones that when we were trying to kind of figure out what we were going to do next for the series here, we decided we would land on those and kind of give our opinions. So we got anything else?
Well, now that we said it, yeah, brother, let me tell you what, her film career ended brutally. 1988, Sleepaway Camp 2. 1982, she played Marie in one episode of Cheers. And in 1992, she was Karen in Intimate Obsession.
Oh, that sounds like some softcore porn.
It was.
Okay.
It was.
Okay, never mind.
So, you know,
Well, I mean, clearly she was made for it because she didn't mind being naked in
she didn't bother.
Sleepaway Camp. So,
Boning Boys in the Woods and all that whatnot.
I do want to say, just to kind of plug another show that y'all do, I just went through the other day and watched every episode of To Keep or Not to Keep, and I ended up calling Justin in the middle of the night to be like, hey, I need you to set aside pretty much all the movies that you said you weren't keeping. Anybody that's a collector, you need to watch those episodes because Justin gets rid of all kinds of good stuff. He doesn't even realize it's good stuff. So if you all you got to do is send him a message and he will sell you all of it.
Having said that, me and Eric have an idea of what's good stuff
We do know. So
versus what he thinks is good stuff. It's stuff that we buy and cherish. Like you can look on the wall up there at some of the turds I bought, but we won't get rid of them.
I don't get rid of everything though. And Lee,
you tend to get rid of cannibal movies pretty quickly. So
I am a hard sell on cannibal films. I can't lie.
I am too most of the time. But the ones that you put up, they're pretty corny, and I just love corny cannibal.
Yeah, but the one that you said that you wanted, I'm just going to tell you. Have you seen that?
You don't-
Yeah, I watched it one
sucks.
time. I watched it one time a long time ago.
I mean, you would have been better off to buy Slave of the Cannibal God,
I
because
actually
that's
already
actually
owned it.
not a
I
bad
bought it
film. However,
at the other place.
In Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta.
okay, White Cannibal Woman. Oof.
It's going to be a nice companion piece.
So,
With the first,
look at this.
That first cannibal.
Yeah, you can
slave.
store it right next to the trash can. It'll be a great companion piece.
If you look by my TV, the one up on top, that's where I tried to watch that, and I couldn't do it. That was 15 minutes into it.
White Cannibal Queen?
The one, the one the guy gave us to watch.
Oh, yeah, the one Eric bought. I got
Yeah,
you.
one
Okay.
Eric didn't say anything about me giving you a hard time in those.
I did watch. It was so funny to see her finally call him out. That was really funny. I did get a good chuckle out of that. Because she's like, does it even matter that I'm here? Because when I say I don't like something, you just keep it in or get rid of it anyway. And he was, you got to give Justin credit. He looked at her square in the face and said, yeah, it doesn't really matter.
It's my collection.
I did. Why am I here?
And I believe he said, and if I misquote you, you tell me.
Right.
I do believe that you told her, well, you're here to hand me the movies. If I'm not mistaken, that's what you said.
You sexist
Figure it out.
bastard.
Anyways,
Get back in the kitchen, Ray.
I think you think do my job.
It was pretty funny. I highly
thanks,
suggest
Eric. I'm
y'all
walking home. I appreciate it.
I'll give you right here. I'm going to talk to you bad all the way down.
Oh, man.
I got some stuff to say to you, so you go ahead. Hit me with your
I
best
did,
shot.
brother. Hey, I am not a marriage counselor. I don't know.
Yep, that's what I thought. Hit me with your best shot. Anyways, we do appreciate each and everybody tuning in. It has been, last week I was solo. It's taken us a while to kind of get back in the groove of things. Me and Dan are trying to get some stuff squared away to get back in the groove for One Fall to a finish. He has just had a lot of stuff going on, so hopefully here in the next couple weeks we'll have a new episode of that. I think for the time being we are on track to all four of us be together for the next few weeks here. Mm-hmm. So we will again take a little bit of time off on announcing conventions. We've announced what we're doing, but I'm not going to go over guest lists and all that stuff just yet. We'll let it get a little bit closer to time. All you guys need to know is there is not one in May. That is our family beach trip, so we won't have a convention in May. We will come back in June with Days of the Dead Indianapolis. Like I said, we'll start that whole shebang and going back over conventions here probably in the next couple of weeks. We'll give it a break. But for now, we do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you are a new subscriber from Nashville, first off, thank you for subscribing. Second off, we hope that you have enjoyed the content. Make sure that you like the videos and comment on the videos. If there's something that you guys would like to see us do, we can always do special request videos. We actually enjoy those the most because it's easy to do something that you guys want to see.
And it's fun.
It's fun.
A lot of times it'll bring something back that we haven't seen for a extended period of time, and it's just really cool. You get to interact with the fans on that want to see a particular item. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, and it makes us go back and kind of sharpen up our thoughts and ideas.
Very much so. So again, we appreciate it, and I guess if we have nothing else, then we will see everybody next week with another episode of Welcome to Horrorland.
Peace. See ya.